Hey folks, and how are you doing today? Now, welcome to this episode of the next 12 months, where I'm going to be talking to the fantastic Sandra Garlick MBE, all about her industry and her free predictions for the next 12 months. So, for the people who don't know you, Sandra, how are you? And tell us a little bit about you. What do you do and how do you help people?
I'm great, thanks. So I help predominantly women in business to power up their personal brand and get visible. And I do that through my awards, through my academy, and through my online events and face-to-face events. And we'll probably talk a little bit more about that later. But predominantly, I help women to recognize their achievements, celebrate them, and to find their story and to share it at my events, in my publications and in other media through my podcast and other means, and to help them to raise their profile and to get that visibility, to put them ahead of their competitors. And that's it in a nutshell.
Love it. And I think we've known each other for about 5 or 6 years around that kind of time. And I've had the pleasure of coming to your awards and seeing people's journeys throughout that time. And also, full disclosure, I'm the producer for your podcast, the Women Who Chat podcast. And I love listening to those because it is all about the people. It's all about those ladies who come onto the show, and it is about developing their skills and their talents, and basically showcasing what you can see to the world, which is fantastic.
And I think some of those ladies are quite they lack confidence, and the podcast is sometimes one of the first steps they make on their visibility journey. And just teasing that information out of them, it's like gold dust. Some of those tips that they share with my audience are just I just want to bottle them all up, because they really share their inspirational journeys, but their business advice as well. So it's a great combination. Yeah,
it really is. It really is. So tell us how you before we go on to the main bulk of the podcast, tell us a little bit about how you got to this stage in your business journey.
Oh, well, the business started as an accidental business. As I say, it started with a broken ankle, and something that made me forced me to stop, reflect, look at what I was doing. And I decided to follow my passion of woman who was born. And it started off with an annual awards. Well, it was a one-off awards actually, but it turned into an annual awards through demand. And I'm just about to do my 7th awards. And once I started doing the awards, people were coming to me saying, we want more of this. We want more of these stories. We want to listen to these inspirational women. We want to be inspired and motivated to achieve. So I set up the monthly network. And, I'd travel around Coventry and Warwickshire delivering events and networking events. And then from that, I started delivering the publications, capturing those stories, those inspirational journeys in print, in my books, I Am a Woman Who, and I'm just about to go to print on the 5th, I Am a Woman Who, over the last 5 years. So yeah, I can't believe, looking back, how far I've come. And one of the highlights, I think, for me was probably being awarded my MBE in the New Year's Honours 2020, but sadly couldn't collect that award until recently, which was absolutely fantastic, for the Princess Royal at Windsor Castle.
Wonderful. You mentioned it was an accidental business. It was an accident that kind of kickstarted the business. And you hear that so often. It's normally you need some kind of catalyst to kind of make you change your way of thinking or change the way you're doing things. And for you, it was breaking your ankle. For some other people, it could be something else, which is, it's lovely to kind of hear that journey. Now, if we're going to look back over the last 12 months, how has the industry, so the events industry, and you as an organizer, how's it been for you?
Well, let's say I've always had a plan B, apart from, the previous year and the initial shock of everything and events, everybody's business fell off a cliff, basically. I've always been the sort of person that I have to find a way through. And, with any journey, you want to go up the motorway, but sometimes the motorway is shut and you have to find a detour. And that's how I've treated the last 12, 18 months. And I found another way of delivering things. So events industry, venues have been closed. events, as an events organizer, you know, I've had to think, how can I deliver something to my audience and keep them motivated, keep them inspired when you're sat at home, you can't go into the office, your company will not allow you to attend events. And that's been the biggest thing. You know, it's not that the people didn't want to attend, it's that their overarching company would not allow them to. It's affected sponsorship, it's affected everything, to the extent where at some point I sat there and thought, is it worth carrying on?
Yeah.
You know, probably a question a lot of people have asked themselves. And it has hit hard, because I haven't been able to deliver those face-to-face events. So I've delivered online free events. And what that has done, surprisingly, has grown my audience, because people have basically turned up that wouldn't normally have turned up. And my audience has grown from as north as Scotland down to, we've got people in Ireland and down, it's Devon and Cornwall. I would never have met those people previously. But yes, it has been tough. It has been particularly tough. And, you know, I've been working with venues for many years now, and I'm just so lucky that one of the venues I work with in particular has been so flexible. And, you know, I've said to them, yes, we're going to do this date. Oh, sorry, we've got to cancel. The government has changed again, or we're only allowed a certain number of people, which has affected revenues. So yeah, the revenues have been hit hard, really, really hard. And I've had to look for plan Bs all the way along. And I have to be able to look and think, right, I'm going to do it this way, but what's my plan B? For every single event I plan. So even the awards I planned last year, which was my first one back in the room, I had to allow for socially distanced tables. I had to provide masks and hand sanitizers. I had to think about what the person coming to the event would want and might need. And yes, some people didn't come, so I put a hybrid event on. So we had a big screen, we had people at home, I had somebody hosting that, just to make sure that there was no exclusion and it was all about inclusion.
Love it, love it. And you mentioned something really kind of prominent in all that, and that's putting your attendees' needs first. You thought about them and what they would want. And I'm guessing going to an event, and now I haven't been to many face-to-face networking events as we're at the time of recording, but it must have been a massive adrenaline rush, kind of having it all and seeing the people in the room and feeling that buzz again. Because I think that's what I've missed, is that buzz in the room that you get at meetings or at events. But from an organizer's point of view, there's so many logistical stuff that you've had to kind of put in place. And have you gone back face to face with the networking events as well, the monthly networking events, or are they still kind of hybrid or a mix of both?
So I now hold a monthly networking event, because now I have to service those clients that live outside of the region. So the monthly networking event stays, but what I do is every quarter I hold a face-to-face event, and I make that hybrid event. So I'm in the room, my speakers are in the room, but my audiences in the room have reduced significantly. I used to get 90, 100 people in a room for one of those events, probably seeing around 30. And that's because people are just sitting at home because they can. But stepping onto that stage for the awards this year, which was my first big event, was very emotional. It was emotional for me, being back in the room and addressing an audience from stage, which I love, and to have not been on I've been on a stage in a studio, because that was my plan B, delivering to a virtual audience, but I hadn't been on a stage in front of a live audience, and seeing their faces and their emotions, it just really got to me. And I realized then how much I'd missed it, but I also realized how much the people in the audience had missed it, because my events, I normally have entertainment, I normally have lots going on, but I had this block of time in the middle where I just let them talk, because I realized they hadn't seen people for 2 years. No. They hadn't had those conversations. They hadn't had those hugs. And it was just lovely to watch the room and to hear the noise. And I think I noticed it more when you haven't had something. you notice it more. And it was
Yes.
just the energy and the noise and the conversation, it was just flowing, and I didn't want to stop that. I wanted to leave my audience free to enjoy themselves, and that's what happened basically.
Lovely, lovely. Let's look forward to the next 12 months. So I asked you before about your 3 predictions about where you think your industry is going over the next 12 months. So Sandra, what is your first prediction?
My first prediction is hybrid events are here to stay. People have realized that they don't have to travel. How many times have you got in your car to go to a networking lunch? You get there for 11:30. So you probably left home at 11 o'clock. So you maybe do a few things in the morning, but don't forget you've got to get ready. So you go off to your networking lunch, finishes around 2, you might have a couple of conversations with people, you travel home, it's 3 o'clock. Now, if you've got kids, you've probably got to go and pick them up from school. If you haven't, you sort of think, well, I'll do a few jobs around the house. You know, it's not worth starting my day now. So you've lost a whole day just from going to a networking lunch. Whereas if you go to a networking event online, they're shorter, plus you haven't got the travel time. So you get your morning, you get your afternoon, and you fit your lunch around it. Yeah. It's not the same, you're not in the room, but people are thinking twice. So I think hybrid events, some people want to be in the room, but some people would choose not to be in the room. And I think now people are questioning whether they will actually attend events. So I think hybrid events are definitely here to stay, and for that reason. And the second thing with that, you know, that prediction is that with net zero and sustainability, people are questioning whether to use their cars.
Good point. Yeah.
You know, they're thinking, if you go to an event physically, you've got your fuel, you've got your emissions, you've got your parking fees, all those things that we've got used to, you know, probably not doing for a while. And I think people are questioning, you know, do I want that length of time out of my day? Do I want to spend that money on fuel? Am I thinking about the environment and staying at home? So hybrid events are here to stay.
I like it. And I've certainly, over the last kind of couple of years, looked back at the amount of time that I've used to travel to different places. And there was one instance one meeting that I went to, which was a fantastic meeting down in Bedford. And I had to get the train down there, which meant leaving Leamington train station, getting to Leamington train station for 5 o'clock for an 8 o'clock meeting, and not getting back into Leamington until about 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock. That is pretty much a 7-hour kind of trip for a 2-hour meeting that I was talking at. And I just think back to myself and go, it's crazy. It's crazy. But you do that because that's what you did at that particular time. Would I do that journey again compared to do it online? I think the answer is quite simple. I'll do it online. But the green aspect of it is really interesting, because I completely agree with hybrid events. Some people will prefer to go to a hybrid event compared to going to a face-to-face event because of time. But I hadn't considered the green aspect. And I think that's because normally I cycle to events. If it's in a local area, I get on my bike. I've even cycled with 2 roller banners on my back with my rucksack before, and cycle to the event. But having that green option and having that kind of lens on it, good prediction. Good prediction. Yeah, I hadn't considered that. Just taking that one step more, do you think there'll become a time when people will, like yourself, go from a kind of a online event and then go into kind of physical events once every so often? Do you think there'll be a mix of them, or do you think people will kind of get into the habit of just doing online or going face to face?
No, I think there'll be a mix, and that's how I've sort of built my business going forward for the next 12 months. So I'm not having as many face-to-face events, and I'll come on to that with my second prediction. But I think people will want to go to some face-to-face events, but they won't go to as many as they did.
Got you. Well, as you've alluded to it, let's go to prediction number 2. So what's your second prediction? My
second prediction is that there will be fewer face-to-face events, but they will be bigger events.
Okay. And how can you see bigger? What is bigger in your world?
bigger in my world is, rather than going to lots of small networking events that we've traditionally done, you know, we might go to a networking breakfast, a networking lunch, we might go to an early evening networking. You know, back in the olden days, I might have gone to 3 in a day. Many of us did. We were I was a networking queen in my early days in business, as I called myself. Went to the opening of an envelope. We're not thinking like that now. So my view is that people will select those bit larger events where they can see, it's the one-to-many principle. They will look for the larger events where they can see more people in one hit. So they're not so keen on going to the small breakfasty type events that they went to, you know, the sort of the BNIs, those sorts of organizations, and the 4N lunches and those sorts of things. But I think they will want to go to the conferences, and they'll want to go to the you know, these massive sort of big one day events. And I noticed that this year, that people are more willing to book for a bigger event than one of the smaller ones. So I think the big events will be milestones in people's diaries. They will look forward to those larger events where they can see more people in a shorter amount of time, thinking again of their efficiencies. I don't know. It's just one of my predictions, and I'm seeing it myself.
No, it's something that I've been seeing. I completely see that. And I've got dates in my diary for at least 4 events, which are big key events, which I'm going to be kind of going to. Some of them are online, some of them in person. But they range from events in February through to September and October. I think the last one is in October. But they're already in a diary. So that's my time blocked out for those particular events. I haven't really seen many kind of face-to-face regular meetings kind of kick off. But I think they're going to be more ad hoc. So when I'm planning my time, it's going to be the big key events. This is obviously without client work. So big key events, and then it will be the smaller kind of events, but they're going to be booked probably more last minute and just on an ad hoc basis. So no, I'm there with you with that one. That's good. How about your third one? What's your third and final prediction to round it all off?
My third and final prediction is attendees want value with events, and they're looking more at what they spend their money on. So as an event planner, event host and organizer, I have to think about the content more so than I did previously. So I have to think again about my customer. What are they going to spend their money on? And they're becoming more picky about what they spend their money on, because some of them haven't got as much money, cost of living's gone up. So they're questioning their spend. So my prediction is that basically attendees will question their spend when going to events. So event organizers are going to have to think about, what value am I going to give? What content am I going to deliver that's going to make them part with their money for that particular event? Because there is a plethora of content now online. There's a plethora of online courses, workshops, free content, you know, free events online. Why should they come and sit in a room and listen to my content or the content that I provide? So that the spend, I think, is key now, and looking at the value that I provide with that spend. What are they going to take away from attending my event? And as an event organizer, I'm having to put more time into that than actually the organizing of the event itself.
And is that kind of in terms of the kind of the value that you're going to be transferring to them, is that the quality of speakers? Is it their messages? Is it the atmosphere, the environment? Can you kind of give a bit more kind of few more kind of details around that side of it?
So my venues, I look now for venues. I'm not just looking at hotels with white walls and you know, I'm looking for venues with character. I've always used the most beautiful venue for Coombe Abbey in Warwickshire, and I've used that venue because it's got character. People drive down the long drive. You've been there, Gary. And they go, wow. You know, they walk into the marquee where I hold my awards and they go, wow. They remember it. They want to go back there. And that's why my venue loves working with me, because people book to stay there. People go back for afternoon tea. People book their own events there. So I'm giving value to the venue by choosing them, by choosing great venues. But as part of my academy, I help women to find their story and share it on stage. So I audition my speakers now. My speakers are all my academy members. And I work with them, and they practice, they audition, they have a rehearsal with me. So they're not just walking onto stage and delivering a keynote. They've been through a journey to deliver the right keynote and the right content for the audience so that they can take away something from that. And the other thing I do is I look at the structure of the event to make sure there's enough variety and there's enough going on, and to keep people, because if somebody brings a guest with them that's not necessarily a business person, for example, they don't want to sit and listen to the top 10 business tips on how to grow your business, because they're not in business themselves, but they want entertaining as well. So the content of the keynotes has to be relatable. So I look at all the value, what they're going to take away, what they're going to learn probably about themselves. So it's not only business related, it's personal development as well. So there's a more of a combination in the content I deliver to give that value. Plus I want everyone just to have a good time. I want them to have a lovely meal. I think really carefully about the menu. I'm one of the only event organisers, I've been told by my venues, that insist on 3 options. I have a meat option, I have a fish option, and I have a vegetarian vegan option. Because people are making choices now, they're eating differently. They've had time at home to think about, well, actually, I want to refine my health goals. So they want to eat more healthily. So they want to have something when they go out that they can choose that is more healthy and perhaps not what they would have chosen 2 years ago. So yeah, I even think about the detail of the menu. I think about who I'm going to sit them with. I want people to collaborate together. So I put people who I think would complement each other at the same table. All those things go on in the back of my mind when I'm planning those events, to give value to the attendees, to ensure that they go away saying, that was amazing, I'm coming back next year, or I'm going to recommend this to somebody else, I've given the value. So when they're thinking about their spend at the next event, they're going to think, that was a brilliant event, I'm going to that.
I love it. And you've just given every event organizer a big kick up the ass just by saying all of that, because, you know, some people think that an event organizer just rocks them up to a venue. They might call them a few weeks beforehand and go, yeah, have you got a room that I can hold an event in? And then pretty much that's it. But what you've just gone through, which is fantastic, is a step-by-step process of how you put on an event, which, again, going back to one of your original points, puts your attendees first.
Yeah,
that's what it does, because all those little bits makes that. And that's not just even the attendees who are in the room, it's the speakers. You know, the coaching that you're given and the journey you're taking them through doesn't just doesn't just give them skills for your event, it gives them skills for any other speaking engagement that they go on to. And how, not even speaking engagements, videos, podcasts, anytime when they're talking, that their skills are going to be transferable to them, which is fantastic.
Well, it is, and you know, the work I do in the academy is to raise their visibility anyway. So I'm raising their visibility by putting them on my stage. They get other speaking engagements from it. They get clients from it, even though they're not selling from the stage. And people gravitate towards them. It's the one-to-many principle. So I'm spotlighting people, if you see what I mean. And I love that. I get a big buzz from that.
Love it, love it, love it, love it. So just to recap, what are your 3 predictions for your industry for the next 12 months?
Now you're catching me out, because I'm just trying to remember what I said. So I said hybrid events. Hybrid events are here to stay. I can't remember for the life of me what my second one was.
There's going to be more key events rather than smaller events. People are going to be looking at choosing their events more carefully.
Hybrid events are here to stay. People are going to choose, they're going to be larger events. People are going to attend those larger events as a priority, rather than attending lots of little smaller ones. They're going to choose and select the events that they're going to see the most people. And finally, people are going to look for value in their spend. They're going to be cautious with spending money. So they're going to look for the events that are good value and deliver great content. And they're going to have some fantastic takeaways.
I love it, love it, love it, love it. Thank you so much for your time today. Before you go, how can people find more information about you, your academy, your network, and the awards and your podcast? How can people get all the info?
Well, this is one tip I'd like to just share before I leave that info. During the pandemic, I decided to gravitate everybody towards one place, and that was my website. So everything I do is in the one place. You can book the events on the website. You can buy my products on the website. You can find out more about everything that goes on with Woman Who on the website, and that's womanwho.co.uk.
Aces. And I'll put that link into wherever you're watching or listening to it. So it'll be in the description below, above. You get the idea, depending on where you are. But Sandra, thank you so much for your time today. They were absolute golden nuggets all the way through. Thank you very much, listeners and viewers. So thank you if you're listening on the podcast stations and also watching on YouTube. Take care, everyone. And Sandra, thank you so much for coming on to the show today.
You're welcome.
Cheers, folks. Take care. Bye-bye.